A little bit different kind of project today. May not look like it, but we have all the stuff here, all the parts to build a tool. And we got ourselves in a situation where we need a specific kind of tool, and we couldn't figure out where to buy one, didn't see one. And I have to admit that this is not an original idea. Of course, there are no original ideas. But I did see this somewhere else, and I thought, man, that'll work, and maybe I can build one of those. So at the end of the day, that's what we're going to do here. We're going to take all of these bits, these pieces of plumbing pipe, 3/4 galvanized pipe, and some 3/4 elbows, and some all thread and some nuts, and we're going to make ourselves a tool. More specifically, we're going to make a custom clamp. Go ahead and get all this stuff out of the packages and see if we can give you an idea of what it's going to look like. Get all the wrappings off, and we can get to the point here where we can show you what we're going to do. We're going to make ourselves a clamp, a custom clamp. We need a clamp that has a lot of reach, a lot of depth to it, and has to fit over a large area. So it's got to have some width here. And what we're going to do is take this 3/4 galvanized pipe and turn it into a clamp. And you can, these particular sections right here are 12 inches. And this vertical section, I think this one is 6 inches. And if you need a little bit wider throat, this one's 8 inches. So you can make this height anything you want, and you can make this depth anything you want based on different lengths of this galvanized pipe. We've got a couple of 90-degree bends here, and we've also got some 1/2 inch hex nuts and a piece of 1/2 inch coarse thread, all thread. Obviously this is way longer than what we're going to need. And one of the cool things is that these 1/2 inch nuts will fit right inside that 3/4 tubing. So what we're going to do is we're going to drill a hole in this tubing out towards the end, a 1/2 inch hole, a little bit bigger than 1/2 inch, and then we're going to slip this nut into that tubing, and we can then run that all thread down through that hole, and from that point, you know, what you can do is at the other end of the all thread here, you can take a piece of wood and make yourself a handle. You could probably drill a 3/16 hole through that, put a little T-bar through there if you want. I think what we're going to do, probably for the sake of easement, is screw a nut on there, and then we can either weld that nut or we can double nut it, like jam the two nuts together so that you have something to turn with, and then you could put your socket and ratchet on there, or even your little impact with a 3/4 socket, and run that screw in and out real quick, however you need to do. The other thing that you can do then at the bottom end here is you can make yourself a wooden block that will slide over this end of the tube, you know, let's say in about this far, to be your clamping pad, and you could glue a little pad or put a little rubber or a little cloth on that side of the wood so it's non-marking. What we're going to do, I think, is take and put another nut in this piece of tube directly opposite the other piece, the other nut, so that we can put an adjustable pad on this side as well. So we'll make a little short piece of all thread with some sort of a disc on it, probably plastic, that we can run up and down, and that way both of these feet will be adjustable, so we can get in and clamp what we need to clamp. So in its rudimentary form, this is what we're going to end up with. We haven't put our nut in here yet, so one thing you've got to do when you're drilling this hole is make sure that it's going to be in the same plane or in line with your elbow. So it's a good idea to screw your 3/4 inch elbow on there first, and then use the parting line on the elbow as kind of your center, so that when you get it all tightened up, you know, your deal isn't off on some crazy angle. So you want to make sure that you're going to be parallel to the back side of the clamp. And what we've done, then we drill this hole. We drilled it a 1/2 inch, and then we drilled it just a tad oversized, I think 33/64 or something like that. So just a little over 1/2 inch, so the rod's really free in the hole and it's going to run up and down on the nut. And of course our piece of all thread here is too long. This is a 2-foot stick, and I think what we'll do is we'll cut that in half so that we can make 2 clamps. When we're all done, we'll have enough material to make 2 clamps. And of course we've got to put a short piece at the bottom here for our foot, and then we've got to figure out what we're going to put on these pieces of thread for feet. I've got some what I call what it's called UHMW plastic, some 2-inch round, and I think I'll cut a couple of discs and thread them and just screw them on the all thread, and then we'll have a pad on both sides, and Bob's your uncle. So we'll continue on here and see if I can put the nut inside there and get going a little bit. Cut this piece of all thread in half, and we're going to have to mark this bottom pipe so that we put the bottom pad directly in line with the top pad, so that they're clamping opposite each other. We don't want one back here and one up there. So I think what we'll do is just measure in from the end and put a mark and put our bottom foot in the same place. So a couple of things. You can lay, once you get your clamp assembled with all the legs, you can lay it on the table and make sure that it's not tweaked or twisted, that it's square. And then you've got your threaded rod running down through there, and it's got to come down right in the center of this other pipe. So you may have to tweak the top one and or the bottom one to get that line vertical, to get that piece of all thread nice and vertical. And like I said, I'm going to make some sort of handle up here at the top, and I think I'm going to make 2 plastic pads, just one to screw on the thread here, and then I'm going to have a short piece of all thread sticking up through the bottom with a pad on it on the other side. You know, that's probably the best way to do it. That way I'm adjustable on both sides. And the other thing that I've discovered, when you go to slide that nut in there, sometimes that nut's a little fatter one set of hexes than the other, so you know, if it doesn't fit on a couple of flats, just turn it a little bit, see if you can slip it in there. Otherwise you may have to take a little skim file off of that one of the flats to get it back in there. And you know, make sure that your holes are big enough to allow your rod a little movement. You don't want too much slop in there, because you know, then when you go to clamp something, it'll just skate off. But basically, you know, that's what we're going to have in a clamp that's, you know, pretty good sized. It's going to go over, I've got to reach in over an object and come up underneath, which is why I need the adjustable foot on the bottom. And this, actually this end of it will be way up here. So I think this is going to work fine. And this is plenty strong. So we've got a reasonably finished product here. We made some little plastic feet and screwed one on here and one on here. This one we've got locked in place with a jam nut, so it turns nicely. It's going to stay there. The bottom one here, for now, we just ran a bolt up through there, and at some point I didn't buy enough material. I've got to go and get some more all thread and some more. The big thing I run out of is 1/2-inch nuts. I didn't plan this very well. I thought I had a pile of 1/2-inch nuts laying around, and I must have used them all. Of course, as soon as I go and get some, I'll find them. But we just made these little plastic feet, and you can make wooden ones if you want. This is a material called UHMW plastic. It's really good material to work with. You can get it at your local plastic place. Just threaded a 1/2-inch coarse thread hole in there, and it's got 2 different sizes to it. So, you know, if we didn't want the big area, we could turn it over and have the smaller clamp area, and it'll end up at some point when the all thread comes through here, and we change the length, then we can set the depth of that and lock that into place, that bottom leg with the all thread. As I say, for now, we've just screwed that 1/2-inch bolt in there, so we got something to work with. But we now have a clamp, and that's going to fit over our project and hold the 2 surfaces together. We're going to come up here, and I need, again, another jam nut here. I've got a stop nut, so I'll run that on and put a jam nut under it, and then we can put a wrench on there to turn it, or we can put a socket and a ratchet, or we can put a socket with our little impact gun and run that screw up and down and get it where we want it. But that's going to make a spiffy little clamp, and you can change the length of these legs to suit your needs. You can change the height of this leg to make it taller or shorter. Of course, if you make it much taller, you're going to have to accommodate that with a longer screw, but easily done. And you can make these things are reasonably inexpensive. I don't know, these little pieces of galvanized tubing were $3 or $4 a piece. Not a lot of money, a little bit of time, and you end up with a nice sturdy clamp that'll work in almost any project that you have for it. This is going to be a custom-made thing. I really need to make another one of these because I'm going to need probably 2 of them. So I go and get some more material, and really I need another stick of coarse thread, all thread, and a whole pile of 1/2-inch coarse thread nuts. But I think that's going to work out pretty good. Put your finger in there and tighten it and see how it works. And we managed to look around and found some nice little spiffy red caps to put on the end of that pipe. So that'll cover up the threads and the sharp edges, kind of make it look professional. Those are normally part of the caps and plugs, like for Aeroquip fittings. That's just for reference, a cap for a Dash 12. So that's what size fits on there. You could probably find some rubber caps or something at the hardware store that would go on there and cover that up and make it look spiffy. There you go.